Welcome back to another edition of the Big Five Podcast, episode number 67. Kyle ditched just to go to California. I don't blame him if you were in this area and you were experiencing the weather the last couple of days. I don't blame him for doing that because if college basketball wasn't on, I would do the same thing as him. So I'm kind of sitting in his chair today and pinch hitting once again as he did so well a couple weeks ago. We have Aaron Bracy from Big5Hoops.com. Aaron, how are you? Thank you for joining us again.
Oh, doing great, Jake. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, hopefully Kyle's relaxing, enjoying California, but I'm happy to be filling in his seat today.
And we're happy that you're here. So we're going to get right into Cope's quick hitters. We're going to talk a couple game previews. And then, Aaron, you were at Penn State, Michigan today, so I definitely want to ask you about that. So last week when me and Kyle were recording, Temple, South Florida, and Drexel, UNC Wilmington were going on as we were filming. So just a couple quick stats and notes on those games because we couldn't get to them. Temple losing at South Florida to open AAC play to Jabri Abdur-Rahim's team. Jordan Riley, though, 21 points, 9 of 18 from the field, had 8 rebounds. And Hyshia Miller, who's really been an Iron Man for them, leading them in minutes, leading the AAC in minutes, played another 38 minutes in that game. 17 points for him, although he was 0 of 8 from the three-point line. And for South Florida, Chris Youngblood, who was on that Kennesaw State team that gave Xavier a scare in the tournament, he led the Bulls with 17 points in a victory with their first-year coach, opening his AAC tenure with a win. Next, moving on to Drexel, playing the UNC Wilmington Seahawks, probably two of the best 3 teams in the CAA. Drexel, they're going to have to beat UNC Wilmington. They're going to have to beat Charleston if they want to get that 1 seed in the conference tournament. Luke House, scorching hot, 25 points, 5 of 7 from 3, 9 of 12 from the field overall. I think I saw the angriest coaching reaction I've ever seen to K.O. Siddle from UNC Wilmington. Luke House off a made basket in transition, just walked up to the right wing, made a 3. He was jumping up and down, pumping his fist. I think that's the most mad I've seen a coach all year. And you don't have to do any crazy scouting or anything like that. All you got to do is look at some numbers here to know that he's the best shooter on the team and one of the best scorers on there. Corey Williams following up 17 points, 6 boards in a win for them at home against the Seahawks. Like I said, 3-team race here in the CAA. Now the Coastal, it's Drexel, it's Charleston, it's UNC Wilmington. Drexel beat UNC Wilmington and Charleston at home last year. They're hoping they can continue that streak, but we're going to talk about them. They were 2-0 after this win. They're now 3-0 after a win we're going to get to. Before I get to you, Aaron, I want to say happy belated birthday to Tommy Godin. Did not see him at the game Saturday. I'm sure he was out celebrating his birthday, but want to say happy birthday to him. He DM'd me and said he might have to ban me from the Fin because the 2 games I've been to there this year were both losses, and they were both against teams whose acronym is SJU. So as a deal I made with Tommy, DePaul, who, as we know, is not very good, is coming to the Fin on Friday. I self-imposed the 1-game ban for myself so I don't have to go see DePaul play. I will not be there Friday, but regardless, Tommy, happy birthday. Hope it's another good year for you. And hope to see you soon at the Fin. And then, of course, last but not least, there was a game at the Palestra today. There was no Big Five teams involved. It was Penn State. It was Michigan. But there was a lot of Philadelphia basketball history going on. Aaron, you had a column that went up today about that. How was the game?
Well, the game itself was fine, and I have to be honest, Jake. I was watching the game, but I wasn't as in tune to the game as I normally am because, as you said, it's not a Big Five game. So I did enjoy the game, but it was everything else surrounding the game that made the day so special. First of all, just being back at the Palestra, it had been a while since I'd been at the Palestra, especially for a game with such a great atmosphere, being sold out, walking around the Palestra. And honestly, Jake, when I went in there, I got goosebumps just being there. I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it. The Palestra is such a special place. As I said today on Twitter/X, I have probably covered thousands of games and been to hundreds of sites, but there is nothing and no place like the Palestra. Just an amazing, amazing venue. So, yeah, the atmosphere was what really, really got me today.
And I know you had a column come out. How about, of all things, you have Jawan Howard, who says to Phil Martelli, who had already kind of been the acting head coach of Michigan, as Jawan Howard ramps himself back up from an off-season heart procedure. You have Phil Martelli on one side. You have his son Jimmy on the other side at Penn State. And then also, if you want to talk about it as a whole, Phil Martelli Jr. is now the head coach of Bryant. Who thought we'd have all these Martellis in coaching? But your column dove a little bit deeper into it. I know you had a picture of the two of them pregame. Yeah, how what a story. That's even look. These Penn State, Michigan, they're kind of struggling in the Big Ten right now. Is Michigan's kind of in a rut, and Penn State's dealing with a new coach. But that was the big storyline here this game. I think if you're a Philadelphia basketball fan,
It was really special for Phil Martelli. I got down there early, partly because of parking, but partly because I wanted to have a chance to talk to him a little bit before the game. And I was able to meet up with him before he went into the locker room. Interestingly, every Big Five game he's ever played, or any game he's played at the Palestra, he always gets that same locker room. And it's the locker room where there's a plaque right outside of it now dedicated to Jack Shore from the Associated Press. And down there was Don DeJulia, the former athletic director at St. Joe's, and Don's son, Chris DeJulia. And it really just felt like old times at St. Joe's with those guys. And you could see that Phil was clearly excited and happy to be back at the Palestra before the game. And then obviously the honor to coach the game. And afterward, like I asked him when the tip was happening and he was standing there on the sideline, what was he feeling? And he was rather emotional after the game and just appreciative of the opportunity and appreciative of the moment and the chance to be back at the Palestra, which is a special place to him. Phil Martelli grew up going to the Palestra, and he grew up in eighth grade. He dreamed of being the St. Joseph's men's basketball coach. That was his dream job, and he did get that job. And to be able to coach so many games at the place where he grew up, going to the games at the Palestra, of course, then for it to end, so the end was really didn't end well, and really sad the way it ended, and sad that Phil and St. Joe's are apart because he was so special to that university. But for him to get a chance to come back and coach at the Palestra, I know that meant a lot to him. And I think it meant a lot to a lot of people who have been part of St. Joe's and part of Phil Martelli. And it was just a special day all around for Phil. It was, I think, anyone being there really just was able to understand what the magic and the specialness that the Palestra offers is all about.
yeah, absolutely. And a couple weeks ago, it was funny. He was coaching at the Garden when they played St. John's, and somebody had asked him about the Garden. He was like, "Listen, this is the second best venue in college basketball behind the Palestra." And then there was the video of him hugging his son after the game. I mean, it really did seem like a beautiful thing. That was way bigger than the game being on the court. And yeah, that room you bring up, that locker room. So I work at Penn. Our equipment room is literally right next to there, and I'll have to bring towels in there for the visiting teams. And I know last year when Penn State played there, Purdue played there, and I said to my manager, I was like, "How is Edie going to fit in there and take a shower? Like he's not even going to be able to fit in the doorway, and the room's so small. I mean, the floors are still carpet in there. Yeah, it hasn't changed a bit."
Now, I haven't been in there in quite a bit because they don't have open locker rooms anymore. And I didn't go in or anything, but do they still have the hooks? Like they had the little hooks where you hang your jersey or your jacket or something. And it was, everyone was scrunched in there. I don't even know how a basketball team could fit in there. So,
yeah, that's exactly what it hasn't changed a bit. Everything you just said, it's still there. We put chairs out there along the wall, but everything gets hung up. And I guess they don't do open locker rooms anymore because, like you said, I mean, they're already scrunched up like this enough. And now the guys are getting bigger, and you're seeing 7'4" guys almost, become normal. Yeah, it's definitely a tight squeeze.
But you know what? And something like that, I mean, I didn't get in the locker room, but it's just things like that. It's just the beauty of the Palestra. And one of the things that really struck me, Jake, before the game, I walked around the concourse and I saw all the fans of Penn State and some Michigan fans really just taking in the Palestra, reading the different memories of what a wonderful job Penn has done. You guys have done with preserving the tradition of the Big Five. I saw fathers and sons. I saw friends, and I'm getting goosebumps just retelling this because it's just special. And I think preserving history is very important. And I think getting a chance to share that with people, really kind of keeps the legacy going of Philadelphia basketball, the Palestra, and I think really brings a lot of joy to people.
Yeah, No, no, absolutely, absolutely, and it's so unique to the Palestra that they have something like that because I believe, as you tweeted today, like it's pretty much a museum.
Yeah.
That those concourses are a museum. The Big Five Hall of Fame, and then all the things on the wall, and the artifacts, and the great teams and the great players. Like, you're absolutely right. It's like nothing else for sure. I think not only college basketball, but in sports as a whole. Oh, Aaron, getting to some games that me and you were both at this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's talk St. John's. Well, let's talk about a guy that's on the walls in the Palestra, Rick
Yeah.
Pitino. Now at St. John's, they come to Finneran Pavilion. They have not won there since 1993. I was born in 2000. I don't even know if my parents were married by the time St. John's, last time they won at Villanova. We were both at the game. You put out a column about this game, pretty much saying, well, there wasn't it. You don't really have to look too deep at the numbers. You don't have to, look at analytics or whatever. One team out there was better than the other, and that was pretty much how this game went. So I'll let you definitely speak about it first. Your thoughts on this game? St. John's going into the Finn, 81-71. They pull out a huge win against the previously undefeated Big East team in the Wildcats.
First of all, I saw that Patino photo on the Palestra wall. I think it's him coaching, correct me if I'm wrong, at Boston University, perhaps. I could be wrong about that, but it's a very young Rick Pitino. And I saw the picture and I was thinking, like, wow, he's still coaching and still coaching at an extremely high level. It was just, there was a lot of buzz there. There was a buzz in the pavilion that I hadn't felt in quite a while. Just, you could tell St. John's and Pitino and the New York media. There was definitely like a different excitement level, a different buzz there. And yeah, I just think it wasn't that complicated. I just thought St. John's was just a better basketball team, just all around, just inside, outside. Villanova did not play well, but I really think on that day, I just think St. John's was just better. I do think Villanova has a lot of things they need to work on, but it's been a very up and down kind of weird season. When they're on, they're on. Like we saw in the Bahamas, we saw at Creighton, but too many times we see they're not on. We saw them going 0-3 in the Big Five. We saw them struggling against St. John's. So I'm not really quite sure what this team is. And I think one thing I know for sure is they have to be better offensively than they've been.
Yeah, no, I mean 100%. I think you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, from the jump when the Johnnies go out on that 10-0 run and they press from the opening tip, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think did they have a turnover on their first possession, I think, or they missed a shot and they still are pressing right up in your face, as a Pepino team would. He's going to harass you. He plays as he says, he plays that mother-in-law defense, constant nagging and harassment. They're going to pressure the ball in the half court. They're going to blow up screens. They're going to press you for 40 minutes full court. It was apparent after that 10-0 run very early in this game that this was their game to have. And
Yeah, I mean, you go ahead.
like they almost beat Connecticut a couple weeks ago, and I thought they should have won that game. And Patino was like, listen, like, and Andy Hurley said something like this a couple years ago too. Like, I think it was after a Villanova loss. He said, listen, like, get us now because we're coming. And Patino said the same thing. He's like, we're getting better, we're coming.
Yeah.
And that was like, this is the type of win that makes you think not that this team has arrived, but they are a true contender right now, and they're starting to gel in.
Yeah, I mean they have all the pieces. I mean, yeah. So Soriano had that dunk right away. I don't recall if they turned it over and missed a shot early, but they might have. But then they ran off those 10 points, and you could tell right from the jump that Villanova was playing behind the eight ball, and St. John's was just coming at them in waves. I mean, they were scoring inside. They Brady Dunlap scoring outside. Defensively, I mean, I remember that one attempted dunk by Tyler Burt and the big guy inside, Aline. I forget his first name, but Aline had what a great block that was. And then the alley oop to Aline first half. They were just playing on a different level. And I know that the Villanova players and coaches talked afterward about the pressure, and you mentioned the pressure. Like I honestly I felt like Villanova handled the pressure okay. Like I didn't feel like they had like 9 turnovers. It wasn't, or maybe 11. I don't have the stat sheet in front of me, but I didn't feel like it was like an exorbitant amount of turnovers. I felt like they were getting shots. I felt like they were getting looks. I just felt like they weren't hitting looks. And one thing, interestingly, I talked about on press row, I know you were sitting behind me, but one thing that I'm not noticing offensively for Villanova is I'm not seeing their perimeter guards running off screens like I have in the past. Like I feel like everyone's kind of like standing, waiting, whereas like in the past, like those guys are working to get open. right now, I don't see that quite the same work level to get open. So I think that's something that I think could help, for them to get even more open looks. But I think they did have some good looks. I just think, they're just not hitting them right now. They're just, quite frankly, they're just not, they're just not playing well consistently offensively.
Yeah, and yeah, you're exactly right. And I think you can even just say consistent. I mean, the defense has usually been there for them, especially in Big East play, holding teams to in the 60s on average. But yeah, just in general, consistently, it's almost like you can figure out. It's all somebody tweeting this out. I think it was Mike Denton. Like you can kind of figure out in the first 5 to 10 minutes what you're from them. Um,
Yeah, I saw that tweet as well. Yeah.
and they haven't really had games where they've had to or I mean, you look at the Drexel game, you look at the Joe's game, you look at these games where they, you're right, like once they get behind that 8 ball, they haven't really been able to climb themselves out of it. And you're also right again, like they were getting good looks. Eric Dixon had some good looks in the first half. Tyler Burton had some nice looks in the first half.
Yeah,
And
Brendan
they're just
Housen
not.
had some good looks, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, they were getting Bamba had some good looks. They're getting good looks. I mean, it's just it's just not. I think offensively, there's just you can tell there's just not that cohesiveness. There's just not that flow. Uh, when the shots are falling like at DePaul, like in the Bahamas, they look a lot better. And generally, that's I mean, right? Everyone's going to look a lot better when their shots are falling, but there just doesn't seem to be the flow. That maybe we've seen in the past from Villanova. But again, like they're playing good teams too. So like I also feel like too that kind of gets lost sometimes. Like St. John's is St. John's a good basketball team. St.
hmm
John's is going to be in the top 25 this week. St. John's is going to make a lot of teams look bad. So I also think like I get it. Like Villanova fans are frustrated and rightly so. And I do think though, like, I think the other team deserves some credit. Let's see what happens. Let's see if Villanova can turn around. They've had some great wins this year. They were 3-0 against Quad One coming in. Their net ranking was, I don't know, what was it, like maybe like 24-ish, 23. I know they probably dropped a little now. So, sometimes I feel like we do like pick apart the warts, which is cool to do. But like sometimes we forget, like this is still right now an NCAA basketball team, tournament basketball team. So, there are things for them to work on, but it's still a good basketball team.
yeah, and they're still 10-5. As you mentioned, like the Quad One wins, the high net ranking, like barring a disaster, they'll be a tournament team, and also, they're doing this without Justin Moore as well. I
Right.
think he would have helped a lot. I'm not going to say that he would have completely swung that game, but for them to have another ball handler on the floor, to have a guy that can create his own, to have a guy that can score down low, that I feel like sometimes they can get, even last year too, that they just get 2-3 happy, and even when it's not falling, they don't really try to push inside. They just keep shooting. But you also mentioned how good of a conference this is too. Like they're not gonna. Rarely do you see a team completely shred through this conference. It's just not possible. There's too many good teams. There's too many hostile road environments to play in this league, in the Big East, which the top three league, if you told me it was the best one, I don't really know if I'm going to argue with you that much on that. It's one of the best leagues in the country. You also mentioned how good, those teams in general. I just want to bring up Villanova's schedule because I did touch on this last week. So they have the ball at home on Friday. The next 5 to close out this month at number 7 Marquette, home against number 4 UConn, at the Garden against St. John's, at Hinkle Fieldhouse against Butler, where they lost last year, and Thad Matta's team is now 10-5. It's been a really nice surprise. And then they're home again against Marquette. So it's not,
That's
things
a killer
don't.
schedule.
That's an
But you could also
Armageddon.
look at it this way too. Like, they have like a lot of opportunities, to get good wins. And that's the thing. They're going to have plenty of opportunities to get victories that are going to help them as far as NCAA tournament at large bid, as far as, so like I don't think the sky is falling at Villanova. I think there are some concerns. There's some things to work on. Their shooters, I would think like a Brendan Housen particularly is a guy who I think can get going. Maybe some of the other guys are what they are. I do think there's some room for improvement. And you're right. Moore is, I think as much as anything, I think he could just add a calmness to them that they really need when they fell behind early. They don't, he could just calm them down, maybe get a couple buckets inside, maybe do the little things that he's used to doing that he knows how to do. So getting him back will be huge. I am a little surprised that he has been out for so long with what's a knee sprain. He's been out since December 5th, so we're more than a month out now. So it seems to me like it's must be a pretty serious, pretty high grade knee sprain for him to still be out. Maybe they wanted to give it, the full week before DePaul. But for me, like if he was close, like I would think St. John's would have been the game to come back, But obviously his health is first and foremost. But I think there has to be a little bit of concern about his health at this point, and whether he really is day to day or whether it may be something a little bit more long term.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's kind of hard to get injury news, at the college level. I don't believe they've revealed like what grade it is, and they really haven't been too specific, even about a timeline. They've just kind of said it's a knee sprain for a guy like him with the major knee injury that he had.
Right.
It's definitely concerning. And then I bring up that stretch that's coming up. I think if he's not, I guess it's kind of like a double-edged sword here. You can be like, well, if we want to speed him up and just put him in for a few minutes and get him ramped up, we can play him in the DePaul game. But I also can see that, well, if he's not ready, like this is a team that we just handled without him. We're at home this time. We just played them. Like we should be able to be fine without him, and we can give him some more rest as they gear up for the meat year of conference play. I want to move on here. Everybody else was playing in the Big Five this week, with the exception of St. Joe's, who we'll get to. They are going to play Wednesday after a week off after their loss at Rhode Island. We can just kind of go over these real quick because there was a couple blowouts here, but one that was not, and probably the most impressive win of the weekend. Sal going up to Rose Hill Gym against Fordham. They had lost on a buzzer beater at home to Fordham last year. They win 81-76, the second straight start for Ryan Zan, who for the second straight game, Aaron, had 10 points in his second career start with the Explorers. The thing I love, though, Ocasio-Cortez, so I've been singing praises since the offseason, gets demoted, doesn't pout about it, 14 points, 6 boards, and 3 blocks off the bench in 19 minutes. Killer bees, as always, Khalil Brantley and Jameer Brickus. Field goal percentage-wise, not great. 3 for 10 for Brantley, 4 for 12 for Brickus, but they had 5 assists apiece, 26 points combined for the two of them. And Deshaun Shepard, who, a guy that at this point last year, I think was just starting to get in the fold, was just starting to get some playing time. Now a starter for them, 15 points, made the only 3 he took, had 8 rebounds in this game as well, which is huge because his athleticism that he has, kind of gives them an element that they were missing this year and last year. And as a smaller guy with his tools, can be a really good rebounder. So he had 15 and 8. And Tunde Valberg-Vasasi getting the start, Anwar Gill out for this game. So the freshman stepping into the starting lineup and had 9 points in 27 minutes. So 2 new starters in this game going up to Rose Hill Gym, a Fordham team that not nearly as good as they were last year. I mean, they had a dream season for Keith Ergo last year. Pretty good win for LaSalle to go up there. I think they're going to be, even with everything they've lost, they really didn't gain much besides some international freshmen that they brought in. And then you have the development of guys just playing with each other another year and being in school another year. But they really didn't add much in the offseason. A lot of people wrote them off. But when you have 2 guards in Brantley and Brickus that have been playing with each other a while, they're older, experienced guards, they can create for each other off the bounce and score and facilitate. And then, of course, you have a head coach in Fran Dunphy, who's one of the best in this league. They're gonna win games like this. They're gonna have some surprising results where they're gonna go into away atmospheres they won at UMass last year, where they're going back to on Wednesday that we'll talk about. I think results like this are gonna happen. This is not a basement team. This is not a 14th, 15th place team. Fran Dunphy's not going to let it happen. Even with everything that they've lost, there's still some really good players on this team. And they had a really good result.
I agree, Jake. I think, and as you mentioned, Anwar Gill was out. Not having Anwar was, it was a concern coming in because, you can pretty much depend on Anwar Gill, Jameer Brickus, and Khalil Brantley every night to give you something. And also Deshaun Shepard, right? So they're looking for those other pieces that can step up and help. And on this night, like you said, Ryan's on. Josiah stayed out of foul trouble, which has been a problem. They went on the road. They were I think, 6-point underdogs to Fordham. They had lost big in their opener to George Mason. They had lost to Howard at home. So for them to go up there and win, that's huge for their confidence. They were picked to finish 15th in the league, as you said. I don't think they're a last place team. They're, I think I wrote this, I think it was in last Friday's column. I think they're the kind of team that if you are someone who likes to like play the horses at the racetrack, they're going to be a big underdog, but they're one of those underdogs. They're a live underdog. You might take a chance on, because they have some really good players. They lack size, but in Brickus they have one of the better point guards in the A10, undersized. Brantley also electrifying as we've seen this season. No more so than obviously his 40-footer at the Wells Fargo Center, but undersized. And Gill gives them a lot of muscle and strength in the backcourt. And Shepard is just I love his game. He's just got a power game. He's probably the best dunker in the Big Five, and he's really he can score the basketball. He's got some good moves inside. He grabs boards. They just don't have depth. And for Zahn and Tunde, whose last name, God bless you for figuring out how to say it. I can't say it. But to give them 9 points as well. And one thing that stood out to me in that game, Jake, was that they got to the free throw line 30 times and they hit 25 free throws. They go 20 for 30 instead of 25 for 30, and there's the lead. So not always. Today the game is really about three, but I still think there's room to get to the line, especially when your outside shots aren't falling. Get to the line and make your free throws. 25 points from the free throw line. That's really unheard of today, but it worked for LaSalle in this game. So yeah, definitely big win for LaSalle. Just to get a win, to get some confidence going into A10.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to kick it down to another school that Fran Dunphy used to coach at, in the Penn Quakers. They blew out Dartmouth in their Ivy League opener. Last year, Penn was very, very good at home. Most of their, I don't believe they lost. I think the only Ivy League game they lost at home was Princeton. They beat everybody else. They've been very good at the Palestra, but they have questions coming into this game, even playing against Dartmouth, who's probably the worst team in this league with the year that Columbia is having, and Brown's still solid, and Harvard, Yale, Princeton, are going to be there. Cornell was solid last year. They're solid again this year. Probably the worst team in this league in the Dartmouth Big Green. But regardless, a blowout win for them without Clark Slackert, and Tyler Perkins leading the way once again. There's actually a lot of really good players and really talented freshmen in this league, and he's one of them. He's been terrific this year, but pretty light day at the office for a couple guys. Nick Spinoza only playing 21 minutes in this game. Reese McMullen playing 25. He had a lot more minutes for him, which is probably what you're going to see if with Penn needing another ball handler in Clark Slackert's absence. But a guy I want to highlight here: 10 points, 6 boards for Andrew Laskowski, who's been the guy who stepped into the starting lineup for Clark Slackert's role, kind of a do-it-all guy. And listen, I know what I'm going to get from him because he's going to stick his nose in there and rebound. He's going to get you some hustle plays and some offensive rebounds. He's going to be able to handle the ball a little bit. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. So I think with Slackert being out, it's nice to have a guy like that. He's another guy that started to come on last year. He played really well in the Temple game. Had a huge dunk over, I believe it was Caleb Battle or Heisher Mills, one of them. But, as the season went on, Laskowski proved more and more that he deserved more playing time. And looks like that's going to happen once again, this time out of necessity, with Slackert being out. But 80-51 win over Dartmouth. They're also going to have over a week off. They're not going to play until Monday at Cornell, and then they're going to come back home on Saturday the 20th and play against Harvard with that Ivy League schedule where they really just kind of play weekends. There's no midweek games. It's kind of few and far between as opposed to the other teams in the Big Five as to when they play. So moving on, we're going across. So not unfortunately, but we're going across University City to another blowout where Drexel went down to William and Mary to play against the Tribe. The 2-0 Dragons made that 3-0 with a dominant win over William and Mary, a team that they definitely should have blown out, 77-55. Another good game for Amari. Well, sorry, I meant Justin Moore. I'm thinking of the wrong guy. Justin Moore, 22 points, 9 of 15, one of his best games of the season. Amari Williams only 16 points in this game against a team that was 6-8 in the tribe, kind of middling. But a really good game all around. Nearly everybody scored. They had three guys in double-digit rebounds. They out-rebounded the tribe 48-26. And if you're Drexel, and the only way to control your destiny is, well, if you want to make the tournament, you got to win your conference tournament. You want to get the best seeding you can. You got to take care of business against these bad teams. So to start out, they played Hampton. That's not very good. They beat UNC Wilmington. They took care of business against William and Mary. They're going to have to go on the road Thursday to North Carolina A&T, which is 3-12. They should take care of business there as well. So even against a team that's not very good, they took care of business as a good team should, and they're going to look to make it 4-0 in the CAA on Thursday. So really encouraging. I think the most encouraging thing for me about Drexel, Aaron, is you have Amari Williams, you have Luke House, Mate Okrus has started to knock down some threes and get hot, but that was Justin Moore, scoring wise, one of the, if not his best game of the year. So when you have a team that's as deep as Drexel, where you have a couple different guys that can hurt you in a big way every night, they're showing why they're a CAA contender here. And I said in the beginning of the season, I think this is kind of the perfect storm for them because they don't lose almost anybody. Now, they lost Coltrane Washington, and that is a big loss. But they bring Lucas Monroe, who maybe won't show up in the box score, but he is a really good defender, a really good rebounder, a hustle guy who's going to make the hustle plays for you, dive on the floor, do things that won't show up in the box score. But with Charleston losing everything they have, and they're still very good this year, and they're a team that already picked off UNC Wilmington last year, I think this is actually the perfect storm for Drexel to potentially get a 1 seed and do the double and not only get the 1 seed in the regular season, but win this conference tournament as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit on the University City wrap here. I'm gonna back it up to Penn for a second because there are a couple things I wanted to say about Penn. I was talking to some people down at the Palestra today, some Penn people, and when Clark Slacker got hurt and they say he's going to be out for the foreseeable future, I was like, wow, there goes their Ivy chances. But it sounds like the injury might not be quite as serious. I believe he is definitely going to be out for a while. But I think he will be back definitely before the end of the season, hopefully much sooner than that. The other good thing about Penn is they only have 4 games in January, so that gives him some time to heal. You mentioned Harvard, but they're going up to Cornell, like you said, on Martin Luther King Day. Definitely a winnable game even without Clark. I think without him in the lineup, I think it's going to be tough sledding for them in the Ivy League. Although they do have some talented guys, as you mentioned, he's a difference maker. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Tyler Perkins had a great game against Dartmouth, 19 points, 5-8 shooting deep. And the thing that really, I think, helped them against Dartmouth, Dartmouth is the bottom of the league, but Penn played at Houston, at Auburn. They played Kentucky, right? Now they come back to the Palestra. Like Dartmouth is going to be like, all right, this is, it's just like, that's why I love that kind of scheduling because then you play tough teams, and then when you get in your conference, you're ready. So that's what I want to say about Penn. I want to move it to Drexel. You mentioned Drexel. The thing that's really impressed me about Drexel, and you touched on it, in conference play, like all of a sudden, I don't know what happened over Christmas break, but they found the 3-point shooting like cure to all cures. They have shot. Listen to this stat that I found the other day. Entering conference play, they were shooting 28.9% as a team from deep, from 3-point range. In their 3 conference games, they're 26-54. They're shooting 48.1% from 3-point range in their conference games. And 3-0, and as you mentioned, they're going to North Carolina A&T on Thursday, rebuilding team with my guy Monte Ross. I have no doubt Monte is going to get that team going, but right now, he doesn't have probably the pieces that he needs to have or wants to have in place. So, I mean, it looks like Drexel more than likely will go 4-0 in the CAA. What a great start. And definitely, I agree. They have the definite chance to win the CAA this year. And it's not going to be easy, though. There are still some good teams in the conference. But, yeah. University City wrap up.
Yeah, how about that? Maybe I should just group them together going forward and just talk about them. It's so funny how it just stones throw away from each other. When I walk to work every day, I walk through Drexel's campus to get there. Crazy how how close they are together. I always joke that when Lucas Monroe transferred from Drexel to Penn, I was like, he probably, number one, did not have to move if he didn't want to. And number two, he probably lived closer to Dak than he did the Palestra anyway.
Right.
All the apartments there in University City. But we'll move on. Temple, they played today. They beat a pretty good Wichita State team. Who's also got a first-year head coach in Paul Mills, who comes over from Oral Roberts, 68-61, low-scoring game. Now, Temple, they had 15 turnovers of their own, but they forced 18. Steve Settle, 6 steals today. Isaac Miller added 3 of his own. Isaac Miller, speaking of the captain who plays a ton of minutes, he played nearly the whole game. Steve Settle had 40 minutes in this game. He did not come out. But Isaac Miller made a 3 with just under 2 minutes left, gave them a 4-point lead at 65-61. Wichita State had 2 turnovers late. They wouldn't score again in the game. And then Isaac Miller and Steve Settle, 3 free throws out of 4, put this game on ice for them. And Jaleel White coming back, 11 points off the bench. He missed the last 2 games with a finger injury. So good win for these guys. Adam Fisher, he's played 2 first-year head coaches in the AAC already. He's 1-1, but that's his first win as Temple's coach in the AAC. So, yeah, any thoughts here before we move on to some games?
I mean, I didn't see any of the game. Obviously, I was at the Palestra. I did look at the box score, but they were a home underdog, and they beat Wichita State. And Steve Settle, I mean, six steals. That's pretty amazing. 17 points. He's been pretty good all year. Sear Miller, obviously, with the scoring, 17 points. But I think just for the program and just for the coach, for Adam Miller in his first year, or Adam Fisher, I'm sorry, in his first year, just to get that first victory in the conference, I think that's huge. Now they have a winnable game on Wednesday against East Carolina. I just think it's just a good feeling around the program. I really think that Adam Fisher has a chance to do well at Temple. I think he's a really good recruiter. He's young. He's got a lot of enthusiasm, and I think he brings a fresh energy there. I'm still concerned about their conference, and I've spoken out on this publicly. I have a lot of Temple people I know that I have a lot of respect for, and maybe that will ruffle their feathers a little bit, rub them the wrong way. But I'm just still not sure if this is really the right fit for Temple, and maybe it will be. For their sake and for their fans' sake, I hope it works out for them. But I do think today's victory, just to get that first conference win, it's always, you're not going to go 0 and whatever they're going to play, 15, 16 games in the conference. So it's nice to get that first victory under the belt. And and have another winnable game coming up on Wednesday, and have a chance to go over 500 in the league.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get to the previews, I just wanted to touch on real quick. I feel the same way as you do with the conference. Unfortunately, I don't really see like an easy solution with that, but we can save that for another day, because then you start getting into debate with football and what should we place more of an emphasis on. They're the northernmost school in the conference now against a bunch of southern schools who are predominantly football. But regardless, maybe we can have a separate episode on that another day.
Another podcast altogether.
Yeah, because that's how much time I think I'd need to break this down.
Right.
It would take a while. But let's get into some upcoming game previews. We're only going to go up until Thursday because the goal is to record another episode Thursday and get out to you guys Friday or Saturday. So we're off Monday and Tuesday. The college football national championship game is on tomorrow. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I would assume maybe it's got a small part, given that that's where all the TV viewership is going to be. But Monday and Tuesday, no Big 5 games. I believe tomorrow's slate, just in general for college basketball, is also pretty light. So we're going to move on to Wednesday, where we have 3 games. So there's East Carolina at Temple that Aaron just touched on. We have LaSalle going up to UMass. St. Joseph's traveling to St. Louis, 2 0-1 teams in the Atlantic 10. And then on Thursday, just one game, the Drexel at North Carolina A&T game that we touched on as well. But, Aaron, I want to talk about St. Joseph's at St. Louis. Obviously, a really crushing loss for them last week at Rhode Island. If it didn't completely take away their chance at an at-large bid, then it is a razor-thin chance at that if it's still there. So, yeah, talk to me about the Hawks. They got to win this game. And if you go 0-2, then you have no shot at an at-large. Now you're already 2 games behind the 8 ball against 2 teams that you probably should have beaten already. So thoughts on the St. Joseph's at-large bid and thoughts from that game last week?
Yeah, Jake. I mean, you said it perfectly that their chances of an at-large bid are razor thin, as you said. I mean, to start out losing at Rhode Island is really not the way they needed to start to make their case to the committee for an at-large bid. And the thing about St. Joe's this year, and I think they're a really fun team to watch. Eric Reynolds, the second, is probably the most dynamic guard in the city, I think, and perhaps in maybe if not the most dynamic in the country, but among one of the better guards to watch. I think he's going to be an NBA player. But the thing about St. Joe's is that they can beat anybody on any night because their offense can do that. But I feel like they can also lose to anybody on any night because I don't think their defense is. I don't think their defense is consistently strong enough every night. Like for instance, like I would say, like if you take St. Joe's offense and Villanova's defense and put them together, you have a Final Four team. You know, you have a great team. But St. Joe's just doesn't, from what I've seen, does not put an emphasis on defending. And when their shots aren't falling, like they weren't at Rhode Island, they're going to lose, and or they're going to play in tight games. They had a chance to pull that one out at the end, but they didn't. So and now having those days off, they're going to go to St. Louis on Wednesday, and the schedule did not do them any favors because they haven't had a chance to play to kind of get that taste out of their mouth. Now St. Louis lost to George Mason on Saturday to go 0-2 in the league, I believe. And so St. Louis is going to return home with kind of like a desperate team, and here comes St. Joe's, also kind of a desperate team. It should be a good game. But, you know, I think for St. Joe's, like I think they could win the Atlantic 10 easily. I also think they could lose in the first round. So it's just, when I kind of feel like, for me, I kind of feel like the best teams that I've seen generally aren't teams that are just going to outscore you. And St. Joe's is a team that can outscore you, but sometimes your shots aren't going to go in. Now, they when I looked up the stats kind of surprised me because defensively they aren't. I thought they would be a little bit worse off statistically than they are. So maybe my eyes are telling me things that aren't quite there. But I've also heard that from people that I really respect, not just myself. So I think that's one area they need to shore up is defensively, and maybe getting Chris Asana. You could say this last name better than I can, but getting Chris back and healthy, I think that's going to help them defensively inside. But I would like to see on the perimeter, I would like to see maybe a little bit more keeping the other guards in front of you more than I've seen. I think that's something that is going to help St. Joe's be better. But I think at this point, yeah, they're really going to have to. I don't know. They're really going to have to go, maybe like 2 losses in the league to get an at-large bid. That's really kind of unrealistic to think.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, 100%. And yeah, defensively as well. I even had questions last year. I mean, it felt like when somebody got into the teeth of the defense and they had to help, it was just kind of helter-skelter. And the 3-point defense wasn't great last year. And yeah, you're absolutely right. If you have to score 80, 90 points every night, like that doesn't work. It just doesn't. If you want to make a tournament and make a deep run, like work, you have to be able to lock down, defend. And not only do you bring up St. Louis being desperate to get a win at home, but this is a make or break year for Travis Ford as well. Not just for the team, but for the coach as well. Like this is a very, very important stretch here to not start 0-6, or to start really, really far down. They lost a lot. Losing Yuri Collins is huge. Losing, the best maestro maybe in college basketball. I mean, statistically last year, his assist numbers were off the charts. And to lose a guy like that that's going to have the ball in his hand so much, then to lose a Francis Coro and to not be able to bring in, a ton of impact transfers. It's not as nearly as good a St. Louis team as there has been in years past because this is a team that have made the tournament in a couple of years. And they've had some good teams. They've had some teams that have been worthy of potentially winning this conference or getting an at-large. Yeah, this is potentially another trap game for St. Joe's. and having to fly pretty far to another road game in the A10. I just want to touch real quick on Temple because this East Carolina team and Temple went 2-0 against them last year. It was they won pretty handedly against them at home. It was a dogfight on the road last year right after Christmas, but Damian Dunn, I think he left that game with a concussion. And then he missed a couple games after that, but he left that game. It was close. He ended up pulling it out. But this team hired Mark Adams, who used to be the head coach of Texas Tech, with all the great defense that he had. So their defense, I believe statistically, has been at least a little bit better than it was last year. And look, the offense is not pretty with this East Carolina. The shot selection can be rough, but the thing they do is this. They rebound well offensively. They're physical. They're going to get 50-50 balls. And when you have an offense, and Houston made almost a culture out of this. We don't care if we don't shoot well. If we want it more than you, we're going to get 50-50 balls and we're going to crash the offensive glass. Even if we miss, if we get 2 and 3 chances at a shot of possession, we're going to make a lot more than we're going to miss if we just have one. So I think East Carolina is actually pretty interesting. To me, they're like a super, super deep, like long shot in this league. They have Bobby Pettiford from Kansas. They just got Cam Hayes eligible, who is at NC State and LSU. And can score a little bit. Now, he's got to get his feet under him as he didn't think he was going to play this year. But I do think this could potentially be, and like you said, this is a very winnable game. But I think this could actually be pretty challenging as well, especially for a Temple team that's not very big. You're gonna have to really put an emphasis on rebounding here. So you can limit a team that's not good offensively to just one shot down. One shot per possession. So with that, Aaron, unless you want to touch on Drexel against A&T or LaSalle against UMass, before we leave here and we sign off, I wanted to give you a chance to give yourself a plug, drop your social media handles for us, and if you have any work coming up that you want us to tell about, the floor is yours. I want you to talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, keep up the good work, Jake. I love what you guys do here with Big Five Pod, and just it's so fun to talk about Big Five basketball and Big Five in general. It just means so much to a lot of people. There's such a history and tradition, it seems like that has become like more and more of an afterthought in general as we get into big time college and professional sports where money becomes really like more important and more of a factor. So just having the history and tradition of the Big Five and just grounding Philadelphia basketball on that, I think is really important. And I think it really means a lot. And I think it means a lot to a lot of people. So thank you for what you guys are doing. I love listening to your podcast. I love being part of it. Anytime you guys need someone to fill in, anyone goes on vacation, I'm happy to help out. But yeah, Tuesday night, we're going to be doing our weekly Spaces show, Big Five Hoops weekly Spaces show from 8 to 9 p.m. You can find the information on my Twitter handle at Aaron_Bracy. I am going to be covering Villanova on Friday night, St. Joe's on Saturday. They're hosting Loyola Chicago, I believe. And St. Joe's LaSalle on Martin Luther King Day. I think that's also at St. Joe's. That's what my upcoming schedule. And every Friday I post a column, which I put out on social media around 7 o'clock. In fact, if you follow me on social media at Aaron_Bracy, I usually am putting stuff up every morning, kind of early around 7 o'clock-ish. If I put some content out and then come back later in the afternoon. As well. And the website is big5hoops.com, where you can find all my content. And I would like to just tease something that I am working on that I'm not ready to announce yet. Just kind of leave it at that. But I am working on something behind the scenes that is going to be, I hope it's going to be really big. So stay tuned for that as well. But definitely, Jake, really enjoyed the conversation. Love what you guys are doing. And, keep up the great work. It's really great to see. And, it's really fun to be a part of it for me as well.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Aaron, and likewise as well. All your columns and the stuff you do in the spaces and having Phil Martelli join and everything. You bring up a really good point. Like it's a brand that's not really as big as it once was, but there's definitely still a fan base there, and there definitely still is like a viewership for wanting to read your stuff, and wanting to read game recaps and stuff like that from all the Big Five teams. So absolutely happy to have you. Would love to have you back. I might need you back Thursday potentially. I don't know when Kyle's going to be back. So if you'd like to come back Thursday, potentially we could work that out again. talk some midweek stuff, preview the weekend from some of the games that you're going to be at. But for another edition of the Big Five podcast, he's Aaron Bracy. I'm Jake Copestick. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back soon with some more Big Five content.